Hey everybody, welcome to Buffalo Sports Talk Western New York. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already done so, to like and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to build something here that's going to be of interest to sports fans throughout Western New York, and we'd like your help in doing that. Today I'd like to delve into what's become a little-known part of Buffalo sports history, which is the Buffalo Bisons. Now, when you say the Buffalo Bisons, most people today will assume that you're talking about the Buffalo Bisons baseball team, which is, an important and popular part of summer here in Western New York. But I'm referring to the Buffalo Bisons hockey team. Now, the Buffalo Bisons were a part of the American Hockey League, which is, still survives. The Buffalo Sabres affiliate, the Rochester Amherst, today play in the AHL. The Buffalo Bisons came to life in 1936 as part of the AHL. At that time, it was known as the IAHL. But the first season was full of disaster. They were scheduled to play their games over the river in Fort Erie in the Peace Bridge Event Center. Well, there was a tough winter storm. The roof collapsed, and they were forced to abandon those plans. There was no site suitable for them to play in Buffalo, so they were forced to take shelter, so to speak, in Niagara Falls. Well, after 11 games there, it didn't work out, and the team folded. And the Buffalo Bisons, after a very abbreviated season, faded in history. Skip ahead 4 years. In 1940, Memorial Auditorium is constructed, and Jerry Jacobs Sr. brings back the Buffalo Bisons as a resident of the new War Memorial Auditorium in Buffalo. Now, if that name, Jerry Jacobs, sounds familiar, that's because Jerry Jacobs Jr., his son, is currently the president of Sports Services. Sports Services, as a lot of you probably know, Buffalo-based company which controls a lot of the concessions throughout North America in stadiums and arenas throughout the four major leagues. He's also owner of the Boston Bruins of the NHL. So Jerry Jacobs brings back the Buffalo Bisons. They're playing their home games at War Memorial Stadium, and they're very successful, particularly in the war years. They win the Calder Cup 3 years in the 1940s. During World War II, the Calder Cup is the AHL's comparison to the Stanley Cup. Is still awarded every year. They won 3 Calder Cups during that time. The Buffalo Bisons, as an organization, won 5 Calder Cups throughout their life. After a few years, Jerry Jacobs decides that he wants to move on from the Bisons. In 1955, he sells the team to the Chicago Blackhawks. Chicago Blackhawks take ownership of the team for 1 year, and then they sell it off to a local team called, the Pastors. A local family, called the Pastors. So the Pastor family was the owners of the Western New York Pepsi-Cola Bottling Company. And when they took ownership of the Bisons, they want to make sure that their new acquisition reflected their other business interests. And for those of you who think that, sports today are too corporate, the Buffalo Bisons say, hold my beer, because the Buffalo Bisons logo and uniform was literally a walking, or more accurately skating, advertiser for Pepsi Cola. The logo was a Pepsi Cola bottling cap with the word Bisons replacing Pepsi Cola, and the uniforms were intended to advertise the Pepsi Cola product every time they took the ice. And that ownership of the Bisons by the Pastor family would last until the team folded in 1969-1970. The Bisons would come to an end when the Sabres became the NHL affiliate, and the Bisons were squeezed out of the market. The Sabres took over Memorial Auditorium, and that put an end to the Bisons. But for 30 years, the Buffalo Bisons were professional hockey in Buffalo. As I said, they're a successful organization. They won 5 championships, and they regularly brought big crowds downtown to the arena. Now, the last year of their history, they won the Calder Cup. Now, what's interesting about that is the coach at that time was Fred Shiro. Fred Shiro later would go on to coach the Broad Street Bullies, who won the Stanley Cup in 74-75 against the Buffalo Sabres. So ironically, Fred Shiro, within 5 seasons, brought a hockey championship to Buffalo, and then later denied a hockey championship to the city of Buffalo with Philadelphia. But the Bisons, again, are an organization that had a long long history. I remember my uncles at family parties when I was young talking about Bison's games, talking about going down the arena and seeing people like Larry Williams. Larry Williams is probably the most famous Bison of all time. He was a stalwart for 13 years. He was a center. He owns the team records for both games played and points. He played 794 games with the Bisons, in which he scored 686 points. So Larry Williams is a fondly remembered part of the Buffalo Bisons lore. Again, it was a team that had success. They brought people to Buffalo to see professional hockey. I'm sure that really laid the groundwork for the Sabres. You know, when the NHL was looking at possible expansion sites, they could look at Buffalo, see the crowds filling the yard for the Bison's games, and that gave the idea that, hey, this is a market that can support professional sports. And we don't know, maybe we wouldn't have had the Sabres if that demonstrated ability to fill the arena for professional hockey was established by the Bisons for those 30 years. So the Bisons were an important part of laying the groundwork once again to bring in the Sabres. And although the Bisons have disappeared, for old timers, they're well remembered. In those nights downtown in the arena watching the Bisons play, it was a degree of success, and it's fondly remembered by people. And it reminds us of the role that the Memorial Auditorium played in Western New York throughout the years. We talked before about the Braves. We talked obviously about the Sabres. There was professional wrestling. You had roller derby, which was very popular for many decades down at War Memorial Stadium or Arena. You had a lot of big acts, Elvis and Sinatra. Most of the major rock acts of the second half of the 20th century played there. So the Buffalo Bisons are just another reminder that War Memorial Stadium auditorium, which affectionately remembered by all old timers in Western New York as the Odd, was site to a lot of exciting sports and other entertainment. And it's a part of the folklore of this area. And the Bisons played an integral part of that. And again, for a team that had a bottling cap as their logo, they're well remembered. They were a successful franchise. And again, without them, who knows if we would have got the second look to bring an expansion team when the NHL did bring the Sabres here in 1970. So once again, it was great talking about this with you. If you have any comments, love to hear them. Again, hit that bell icon and subscribe, and we'll be back next week for another edition of Table Talk.
Hey, Tommy, I'm back. All right, I'm so excited. I get to talk about the Buffalo Bisons. Oh, man. I'm sorry I was gone for a few minutes, man.
We're done.
What?
We're done.
What? What do you mean we're done?
Well, I did the show, and I thought it went well, and you weren't here, and so I did the show myself.
You did the show.
I did the show.
I'm not going to be in this week's show.
And unfortunately, we don't have time for you to add anything to it. So that we're.
Did you mention to like and subscribe?
I did.
What about the bell icon?
Hit the bell icon. It's all done.
So I'm not going to be in this show.
Not this time, but next week. Come back and we'll see what we can do.
All right.
Thanks.
See you guys. Humor.